Hi everybody, Jean here with Hunting Pretty, and Happy New Year. So I wanted to do a little something for New Year's, and I wanted to do a little something different. In my experience in retail, January is always about diet, exercise equipment, and supplement sales. And I wanted to do something that was just a little bit broader. So I wanted to share some books that have had a huge impact on my life and that I thought might be interesting to other folks as well. So I didn't want to put any sort of formalized pressure of like the book club type situation. So I just thought I'd share groupings of books that I found really good that might be a good way for you to kick off your 2018. First, I just want to talk briefly about two authors that have lots of books and a couple that have been impactful to me. They're both very different. So first, Laura Day is actually a really famous teacher. She's an intuition specialist. I attended one of her classes at Esalen, which was amazing. So two of my favorite titles of her one is The Circle. That's really about visualization, creating one huge movement in your life and kind of putting actions into play that will help bring it to fruition. And then the next one is Practical Intuition for Success. Both these books, like really what I get out of them is that your gut is a really strong compass. And it doesn't mean you just sit on your sofa and wish for things. You know, you got to really do the work and put the steps in. But sometimes the hardest first step is just figuring out exactly what you want to do. And I find her work completely inspiring for that. And then another author that means a lot to me is a graphic artist out of LA. And I'm just going to call her Yumi because I cannot pronounce her last name, but I will spell it for you. It's Sakugawa. So she's awesome. Yumi, I follow her on Instagram, and then I also signed up for a newsletter. But I first found one of her books. It was called There's No Right Way to Meditate. And it's just about basic mindfulness, but it's the sweetest, most inspiring book. And I found it in this little kind of paper pamphlet in a gift store that I love here in Austin called Take Heart. It's in East Austin. And so I bought it, and then she came out with a hardback, and then I got her illustrated guide to becoming one with the universe. And it's just she has these like amazing, like kind of unique graphics that are like raw but inspiring and kind of unique. Like she talks about how to pull yourself out of a bad mood by having tea with your two-headed neighbor. It's just, you're instantly pulled into like a whole different world. And it reminds you of how a lot of times the little small problems we really sweat over are don't matter that much. And she's also shares a lot about her own life and everything that she goes and why she started doing this. And then her new book called The Little Book of Life Hacks, How to Make Your Life Happier, Healthier, and More Beautiful is awesome. So some are like short, inspiring life changes, but some are like beauty tips or how to make the perfect iced coffee. And it's just these beautiful colored drawings. And it makes a really good gift too. So I find that all of Yumi's work like instantly pulls me out of a bad mood. I actually take There's No Right Way to Meditate. I take that on the road with me whenever I travel for work. I find it super helpful, and I've given it out as gifts. Okay, next are three titles that I kind of go back to over and over that I've read a couple of times. One is Flow from Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. Also not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. I think that was my best shot. So flow is just the core idea of finding your passion. It can be a hobby, it can be work, it can be exercise, it can be being in nature, but it's that thing that you find that you forget the passage of time. You're so ingrained in that thing and you're so happy and so focused that everything else falls away. So he did a lot of the original research into this topic, but it's, of course, now there's lots of leaders in this field. So I'm not gonna pretend like this book is an easy read, but it's amazing to find the origins of all of the research of this idea. Second is Brian Weiss's Many Lives, Many Masters. It's a really interesting book. Brian Weiss was a psychiatrist that treated, he specialized really in people with like phobias, intense phobias. And he had one patient who had a lot of intense phobias, and he used hypnotherapy to help people overcome phobias. And inside of this, she discovered she regressed into her past lives, and it helped her discover why she had all these phobias. But it's a fascinating, just kind of objective look at that, which, whether you believe in it or not, it was really interesting to read it from a psychiatrist, a doctor's point of view. And then lastly is Maya Angelou, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. So I know so many people that love Maya Angelou. This book is just one that I kind of go back to of hers. And I do kind of one of my favorite things. I keep like pictures or little memoriams like as bookmarks. This one is a picture of me and two of my best friends, Lori and Terry. Okay, next are two that I would classify as self-help books. Also not new books, especially Janine Roth's, but it's one that I go back to time and again. Janine Roth, Women, Food, and God. I still tell people about this book, so if you haven't read it, even though it's been out for a while, it had a really profound effect on me. So Janine Roth is an amazing speaker and teacher. She's been on Oprah, stuff like that. But she's done a lot of research into any issues that we have with food and eating. I know I've gone through lots of different phases in my life where I was just so intensely worried about my weight. I just thought if I could be thin enough, it would just solve every problem. And she talks a lot about that in these workshops she has, and it kind of boils down to really figuring out more what's behind that idea. It's not really about the food, but like what's behind that. So I just found it such an impactful read. And she has another book called Lost and Found, which is also an amazing book. And then secondly, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. So I remember when this book came out by the Marie Kondo method, and it can be intense, and I don't say that I follow it to the letter, but it did really help me think about things, and just like us as consumers, like constantly buying stuff and how you keep stuff, why you keep all this stuff, and just really putting it into perspective, like things should bring joy. You shouldn't be buying stuff just to fill some other hole, things should bring joy. So I love that book for that reason. Okay, another super historical kind of version of a self-help book is Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. So this is kind of that originator of visualization. He was funded by the Mellon family to do a lot of this research, and it's an old book, but it's amazing. It's a very straightforward version of that, of kind of knowing that you can accomplish whatever you want to once you have the mind to do so, once that you believe it's possible, and then you take the steps to make it happen. And then three other books that I guess I'd loosely classify as biographies that I also go back to a couple of times. One is Hillbilly Elegy from Jd Vance. This book I find very significant nowadays. He grew up very poor and has since he put himself through college and went to law school, but he talks a lot about those divisions of money and socioeconomic backgrounds and how kind of where you start, how difficult that can be to move into different classes or different schools. But he's an incredible writer and very clear and vulnerable about articulating what that's like to grow up in a very dysfunctional way and how hard it is to transition out of that. And then Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In. So I think a lot of people have read this, but I always want to encourage all women to read it. It was the first time I read a book, like she talks about women in the workplace. And the first time I read it, there were so many scenarios that she talked about, like what it's like to be the only woman in a room. What it's like to be the only minority woman in a room, when it's every other person at a business meeting is a Caucasian man. I never thought about it, but I did realize that I alter my behavior as I kind of like moved up the ranks through companies. There was fewer women around me. When I started out in beauty at cosmetics brands, I was really fortunate because the beauty industry is incredibly supportive of women. It's largely because it's the product for us, but I worked under many great female leaders. As I went to bigger and bigger companies that have other products as well, I noticed like that there's never as many women in leadership positions as there are men. And it's just something always to think about. And I realize that now I'm very conscious about my behavior in meetings and to not be reticent or nervous or insecure about speaking up and literally sitting at the table. And then lastly is Frida Kahlo's diary, which is just this gorgeous artist collage. There's writing in the back, but it's a lot of her pictures. It's literally her diary published. We went to Mexico City last year, which I loved. It's amazing. I can't wait to go back. And we went to Frida Kahlo's house, Casa Azul, and it's just extraordinary. To be in the presence of that kind of beauty is amazing. And then my favorite book that I purchased in 2017 is called The Atlas of Beauty. I love this photographer and this project. I also follow her on Instagram. So she started a project of going around the world and photographing women all over the world, all different countries, rural areas, big cities, everywhere. And she did it because she just wanted to show that all women are beautiful. You know, and we each have something different and unique about us. And I was so inspired by that. And her photography is incredible. It just shows all these gorgeous women in these natural moments. And it's one of the things today that makes me really happy that the world is kind of a small place, that we can really get around and see other things. But when I read this book, I realized that's the core of what I believe. There's beauty everywhere. And the more you see it, the more it's going to seek you out. And all women are beautiful. All people are beautiful. So it's about embracing what yours is, and also like what you see in others. Okay, and the last two things in my New Year book tutorial, I guess we'll call it. One is always having an awesome candle. This is Thistle Farms. If you haven't heard of them, they're a social enterprise nonprofit. This is the biggest social enterprise in the States. They have a 2-year program that helps women escape sex trafficking, prostitution, and drug abuse. And in addition to that, they created a bath and body and home goods store. So candles are only home goods, but bath and body products. So after women are put through this program, they're employed at Thistle Farms. So it was really the final step in what the founder, a minister named Rebecca, figured out is that like while you can help people escape that kind of life, they need to have something on the other side to stay out of it. They need to have employment and a community, and she's done an incredible world of good, and the products are amazing. And lastly, and probably most importantly, is just journals. So I've heard this over and over, and I'm sure you guys have heard this too, but mindfulness, meditating and journaling is just kind of like a cornerstone to self-care and to happiness. And so I had a couple that I really like. So I love this Medium monthly calendar, which you can get on Amazon. So I use this just because it's a pretty graphic way to like keep notes about the days. I also, the Panda Planner, it's like it has a page for every day, and then you can also note like what happened that's good or bad, or what you're looking forward to doing, what you learned that day. And I find that just by reflecting on it or planning out my day, it's like the perfect first step to start my day by planning that. And then lastly, a gratitude journal. So I keep this by my bed, and it's such a great practice to write down the things that you're grateful for in your life, because it helps you focus on the good things, and it helps you bring more good things too. And I'm a penaholic, as my husband and my old teammate Kate will attest. There is nothing like a good pen. So I love these, like the Papermate felt tips. Felt tips are my favorite, but I also keep like jelly roller balls. I keep all these kind of I got a fountain pen for my awesome husband as a gift. But there's nothing like a candy jar full of pens to like get you started on any project. So thanks for watching my little book segment today. I hope that one of the books I touched on is something that interests you and that you pick up, and I hope it has a positive effect on you as it did on me. I just love sharing those tools that have kind of helped me along in my career and also my life. So I kind of think that's how we all learn. It's just all the sharing. So thanks so much, and have a great new year.